Alright, are you ready for this? I'm not 100% sure that I'm ready for this. Hey, I'm Michelle with Michelle Loves Books. Welcome back to my channel. I put together my list of the worst books I have read in 2019. This is organized from probably my least disappointing book to the worst book I've ever read this year. I did end up deciding to leave 2 books off of this list because I feel like I've just discussed these books way too much on my channel already, and that would be Cruel Prince by Holly Black and Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. So I've reserved this list for books that I haven't really talked about on my channel yet. We're going to start off with a book that I kind of have this weird love-hate relationship with, and that's Slayer by Kirsten White. This is a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan fiction. I'm calling it a fan fiction over a retelling. They don't really retell any of the events that happen in the show, so I'm calling it fan fiction. This book takes place after the events that happen in season 7 of the TV show, which, as a recap, in season 7, the Watchers Council had been destroyed by a bomb placed there by one of our villains, Caleb, leaving little survivors. Willow also released the magic of the Scythe, which is the Slayer's weapon, to give Slayer strength to all potential Slayers, so that the burden was not upon one girl alone. And this book follows the Watcher's children. This is also a world without magic because of what Willow did. She disrupts the balance, and therefore there's no more magic left in the world, which on a plus side closes the portals for any other demons to cross over into their dimension. Is going to be the very last Slayer ever born, ever called upon. Understand that this would create a huge apocalyptic conflict if there's no one who is strong enough to fight the forces of evil and keep the demons at bay. While the portals are closed, there are still demons in this world that they must contend with. So I read this book back in July, and I did a very lengthy discussion in that wrap-up video, which is 2 parts to cover all of the books I read in July. I had a lot of feelings to say about them. But I decided to go ahead, bring this book up again because it's been about 6 months and my feelings really haven't changed about it. I'm still very much on the fence. It was disappointing in a lot of ways. So if you're new to my channel, you may not know that I am a huge Buffy fan. I started watching this when I was, oh gosh, I don't know, middle school. I started watching this and I'd watch it like every single day. I really didn't watch a whole lot of TV. That was like one of the TV shows that I would watch religiously. So I really tried to keep my bias out of it and just enjoy it for whatever it was. But unfortunately, I still had a lot of problems with it. I found the main character mostly to just be really irritating. I guess she's supposed to be kind of witty and edgy, but that just wasn't working because she was extremely whiny and judgmental. Our main character hates Buffy and hates the existence of Slayers. She blames them for everything that is wrong in the world. This makes absolutely no sense to me. This was a huge turnoff from the story. This girl should know better than anybody, being a Watcher in training, how important Slayers are to humankind. She's extremely ignorant for being and growing up with Watchers. But since Slayers outnumber Watchers, and the Watchers have no charges, what the fuck is their job actually? Their cause is pretty much ancient history at this point. Maybe this boiled down to a jealousy thing? Because in the history of Watchers, Watchers have notoriously been trying to run the show and control what these Slayers do and how they do their job, and criticizing them like they ran Buffy through all these ridiculous tests just so that they can kind of give their job some purpose. Another really big problem that I had with this was, I believe it was a misplaced literary device for a hook, was the fact that they speak the Buffy lingo and share similar speech mannerisms. At first, this was an oversight on my part, I have to admit. I was just enjoying being in the world of Buffy again, and one of the biggest things was the silly lingo and banter. Hold up, Michelle. This makes no sense. A little bit of Buffy history here. This unique speech pattern is reserved for Buffy, Willow, and Xander, the original Scoobies. Even their outside friends who join the Scooby Gang from time to time have a little bit of a diluted version of this token Buffy. Now the Watchers are a bunch of tweed-wearing stuffy British Gileses who really can't understand the California Valley Girl linguistics of the 90s. So where did they get this from? And why would they talk and act like their arch nemesis? On the other hand, later on, the girl's mother clears up this huge misconception and miscommunication about Buffy. Thank goodness. It actually kind of turned it around, so I could kind of see where our main character was coming from in her hatred towards Buffy. But it also kind of makes me think she's an idiot because, Watcher, Slayer, kind of your job. I don't know. Some other events that transpire later on in the book, a little over halfway through the book, really turned this book around for me. I also feel like it's not entirely fair to completely dump on this book so harshly, because I realized that I'm extremely biased, and I had a harder time of it separating my own expectations and the fact that Kirsten White was not trying to write Buffy. And I do admire the creativity, and nobody has ever really written like retellings of the Buffy story. Nope, that's not true. And then there's Frey, which is a graphic novel that's like a new generation of Slayers as well. But nothing like a novel like this that's specifically Buffy. So I did like that, and I much appreciate it because I love Buffy. The second book in the series comes out in a couple of months, called Chosen, and I do want to read it. We have this whole corruption, deception, changing sides, this whole underground market thing that seems really cool. So I want some more of that, and I hope that it comes through in the next book. Next up is Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Leigh Taylor. Our main character is like living two lives. She was raised by an unusual family who use magic. That did not come out right, and my legs are falling asleep. She was raised by an unusual family who are monsters. They make a living dealing in magic and dealing with other monsters. However, she doesn't quite fit in because she is a human. She was just taken in by them and cared for. So they push her out into the human world, but she's finding it very difficult because that is her family and she loves them. So she does still have a relationship with them. They send her off on tasks, collecting different things that they need for their dealings. They also live behind this like secret door, but one day the door is closed and she can't get back to her family. This story took a complete left turn. I was not expecting it. All of a sudden, it's less about the monsters and everything that it started out to be, and it's more about angels and this like epic love story, enemies to lovers, which is very insta-love. And whew, it was just like whiplash, how fast this book changed. I kept waiting for the answers of the things that happened at the start of the book, and I don't know, I felt like I was just having to wait way too long. I didn't care about this relationship. It just made no sense to me. I wasn't getting the answers, so this should have probably been on my DNF list because I have no idea what happened. I think I did finish it out. I don't know. It honestly does not matter. But yeah, I did not care for this book, and I was really disappointed in that because I thought it was going to be something that I was really going to love. The next one is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. To be honest, I had to go back and refresh my memory on the synopsis of this book because I had forgotten a lot of it. So that should be saying enough right there. This is a YA contemporary romance about a young Jamaican immigrant girl and a Korean boy who fall in love, and how they're navigating a biracial relationship, in a nutshell. So really, like, what's not to love? I love stories like that. So Natasha and her family are worried about being deported, and so Natasha's got a lot on her shoulders. She's also a very determined, focused, level-headed girl. I really liked her perspective. I really liked her character. She's not one to get wrapped up in swoony love stories. Like, she's just very practical. And then we have Daniel, and he's really sweet. He's also a bit of a dreamer. When he sees Natasha, he instantly feels like fate has brought them together. The courtship was really cute, and how he goes about trying to get her to give him a chance. And he really is a sweet boy. I don't see why nobody would give him a chance. And they also have some thought-provoking discussions about race and culture. But then, bam, all of a sudden, insta-love. It was just super rushed, and I felt like nothing really impactful happened in this book. That's why it didn't stick with me. I just felt like this book had so much potential, and it really just didn't live up to it. That's about it. Yeah. Moving on to the books that I did not finish. The first one is Wonderwoman. This is part of the DC Icon series by Leigh Bardugo. Each book in the series is written by another popular author. I was really disappointed in this because I expected so much more. I had just finished all of the Grishaverse books, and I was in love with Leigh Bardugo's style of writing and her storytelling, but this book left me bored to tears. The best way to describe this book is basically a gender swap of the movie. She did change a lot of other things in this book, they just didn't stick out to me. Our heroine is being targeted. She's basically this reincarnated Apocalypse. Her sole purpose of existence is to be a tool to end the world or cause destruction, mass destruction. She and Diana set out to save her life and also stop this cycle so that other women are no longer stuck in this burden. I guess there's actually more to it. I believe the girl is also sick and dying, and that's like part of it. Don't know. don't care. In its essence, it sounded so good, but it just felt way too much like the movie. I just couldn't even connect to the plot. I couldn't connect to the characters. I really didn't care about them. Diana is supposed to care about this girl so much that she going off on this journey, leaving her home and her whole family to save this girl's life and save the world, and she should be very passionate. I didn't feel it as a reader. Oh, and let's not forget that there is LGBTQ rep, just to check off that box. I really can't even remember there being a romance, so I don't even know why that was relevant. The next one is Ice Cream Man. This is a graphic novel. This looked so good. The cover alone, it's like the artwork, it's like this 50s retro Pleasantville style, and this happy looking ice cream man who is actually a demon. I was so excited about this one. I had my eye on it for a really long time, and my library finally got a copy of it. So I picked it up, and it was just the weirdest thing ever. It was so weird. I can't even put my finger on what it was about. I was expecting something completely different. The next book is The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancy. This is a young adult science fiction, and they made a movie out of it. I really liked the movie, that's why I picked up the book. So what's it about? It's an alien invasion that comes in waves. And each wave they take out, like the first one was like a plague that makes everyone sick and it killed off a whole bunch of humans, and then the next one was like the floods, and so each wave brings on a new disaster that starts killing off the human population. So this one is the start of the fifth wave. And these aliens are like these parasitic beings that implant themselves in the human brain and take over and control humans. So they blend in just like any other human. And they actually have this really clever way of getting humans to basically kill other humans for them so they don't have to do it. They also start recruiting kids into this military and killing off the adults. And I guess I'm just too old for that. I guess I've just grown out of these all the kids save the world kind of stories, for one. And it's really set up for a really interesting plot. But, oh my god, what is going on? Our main character, first of all, is so irritating. I liked her in the movie, but in the book she is so irritating. This girl's younger brother gets taken, so she sets out to go save him. She gets shot down and taken to this house, patched up by this boy. She totally does not trust this guy and thinks that he's going to kill her. But then she just putzes around for ages at his house, playing house for the majority of this book. They're like still at this fucking house, doing nothing. They're like building this relationship, but also she's thinking he's going to kill her. This chick really needs to get her priorities straight. It's the end of the fucking world and she's just like, poo poo, brother who? Let's just stay here and play house with this cute boy who maybe wants to kill me. I don't know. The last one. I recently read this. I recently just finished this a couple days ago. Well, I didn't finish it because I didn't finish it. But it's Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake. We have twins, Mara and Owen. Owen's girlfriend is Hannah, who's also good friends with Mara and Charlie. Charlie is Mara's ex-best friend and ex-girlfriend. After a party, Hannah accuses Owen of rape. Mara is caught between her brother and her best friend and trying to decide who she believes. I really do feel for her position here because she can't imagine her brother doing anything like this, but she can't imagine her friend lying about something like this because she was so in love with him. But also the evidence of her hurt wrist makes things really hard for Mara. They really capture a lot of different perspectives in this, and I'm not 100% sure I agree with them. I feel like maybe it was just trying to do too much with the story, that it get a little confusing and they're pushing some ideals that I did not agree with. I feel like I need to be really careful with how I explain myself on this book and why this book made the list. Please don't forget that I did not finish this book. I made it about 130 pages before I DNF'd it. So I do not know the outcome, and frankly, I just don't care at this point. For the first thing, I don't like the writing. The dialogue is distracting and sometimes really odd. The characters say things that make them like talking puppets in a cheesy ad for the youth, or something like that, you know what I mean. They're just not real, believable teenagers. I wish I had reference for this, but I don't. Their maturity was also highly unrealistic. They seemed really calm and they always knew what to do. Yeah, this might be just me just being really nitpicky, but when you're already frustrated with some things just start, picking the scab. So many of the conversations and the dialogue end with Mara repeatedly. Like I can hear it echoing in my head. Mara, Mara, Mara. I can see this like dramatic cinematic effect as the screen fades out as she's walking away in mid-sentence. Mara. It was just so annoying and overly dramatic in my opinion. Further along on the writing is fluffy, descriptive writing. I can appreciate it if it has a purpose, like setting a tone or describing a scene, and this book was not doing that. It had really long, wordy passages explaining every little thing that she did, every thought, daydream, flashback, inner monologue. It was so boring and unnecessary. I really had to start glossing over those parts. When I started to feel like that, I started thinking I need to DNF this book, but I also wanted to continue to find out what happens at the end. She's a 16 or 17-year-old sheltered little girl. Her life and her thoughts are just not that compelling. Okay, I'm sorry. This book was made for teens. Maybe my feelings come from a fact that I am older, I am an adult, and I just can't see things through a teen's eyes anymore. So now for the harder hitting stuff. I hated how coincidental it all was. It again felt like an extremely cheesy video that they show children in school, in like sex ed class or something. Like the little mock-up skits done by amateurs. And you know what I'm talking about. Like they're not meant to be realistic because they're informative. All the female characters, it just so happens, belong to this school club for girls to talk about boobs and periods, which was founded by Mara herself. Her friends kick her out because of her brother's actions, which for me stacks into a later point I will be making. This club was also highly supported by her mother, and I believe it was described as something very pretentious, like patriarchal. You know what? I have the book here. Okay, so she's talking about her mother, and she says, as expected, she literally squealed when I told her about it, the club. The woman has two great passions in life, refinishing old furniture to look even older, and feminism. She writes for this like feminism magazine. When she started her club called Empower, her mother cried, actual tears that required a tissue. Okay. So she says, Empower is a feminist group, newspaper founded freshman year, and my plan is to push every possible limit of the dress code without actually violating it. I'll get hauled into the office probably more than once, and despite Principal Carr's inability to find any infringement according to his handy-dandy measuring tape, he will demand that I change. I'm a distraction, he'll say. Boys will be boys, he'll say. If I'm a nice girl, I should know better, he'll say. Because that's what he says to any girl who shows a deltoid or has naturally long legs under her skirt or has to wear anything above a AA cup. And that's when I'll breathe fire. I kind of don't understand what they're going at here. Like, what does she want to do? Allow girls to wear short skirts? And it's also kind of saying like the principal himself is like, oh, boys can't help themselves, girls can. That's fucked up. Again, this wasn't even in my original notes for this book, but I don't like that. I do not like that. There's so much wrong with that. I mean, they don't really go into length of what they're trying to accomplish at this. The reasoning behind, like, what does she want? I don't know. But it makes the principal sound like a horrible person. Okay, so her mother says, you know, I'm very proud of you. It takes a brave person to challenge the institutional misogyny of the patriarchal system. So there's that. So this club is highly supported by her mother, who later the book sets up for, hold on, what did it say? Oh, okay. So they set it up that this mother, who's this like strong feminist, ends up supporting her son and believes him when he says that he did not rape Hannah. But there's this idea that is prominent in this book of this nobody believes the girl addendum. And I have to say that that's really messed up to make it sound as if that's what this mom is doing. This mom is doing what all other mothers would do and supports her own son. All mothers support their own children, even when they fuck up. Her support of her kid was written as a criticism for the sake of anti-feminism. Do I need to explain how skewed this logic is? So back to coincidences. Mara obviously has been through a similar experience with a teacher, by the way, to which she tells nobody, and I believe that the intention was to show another side of the victim, sympathy, and use it as a literary device to empathize her deeper connection and conflict. But I believe that this was going overboard and it was not necessary. It's as if the author is expecting people to not be empathetic to rape. You don't really need to go overboard on expressing why it's bad. We know it's bad. This leads into my next point. All of these things just keep stacking more reasons to feel that girls are always victims who go unheard and boys are always bad. We've got the teacher, we've got the principal, and now we've got Owen. I think it was a really poor choice. It's obvious that this is a feminist book. For me, it just leans too heavily on the man-hating agenda. And here's why. Page 97. Nobody ever believes the girl. Nobody ever believes the girl. This line pissed me off. Suddenly, this book was not just talking about the characters in this story, but it was talking about all girls. maybe it's just me and I have unfortunately just encountered a lot of bitches. But this statement is not true. To be more accurate, it's probably like a 50-50 depending on who you ask. I have known of my fair share of women who use their sexual prowess to manipulate men, and not just older women. I happen to know of a girl who was about 4th grade at the time, who falsely accused one of her family members for molesting her. She held up this lie all through months of court proceedings until she finally came out that it was a lie. She made it all up because she was pissed off about something she didn't get her way or something like that. I wouldn't ordinarily bring this story up, except that this book really forced me to address that there are women who lie. Because it seems to me that this book is, again, it's like making a public statement, and it's intended to offer more of an educational approach than just a, needless to say, I felt this book was extremely problematic. The lasting impressions of this book are that girls are victims, boys are bad. I genuinely worry for the impressionable teens navigating first love, sex, relationships for the first time, with this fear that girls are victims and boys are bad. All boys. Teachers, principals, peers, they're all going to take advantage of you. And that's the only way they see you. Also, nobody will believe them because nobody ever believes the girl. This could have been fixed with more careful writing, but maybe this was the intention. I don't know. But I do want to leave this on a good note because there were a couple of things that I thought were done well. As I said, this book did look at a lot of different angles of a situation, from the victim to the accused family and everything that they kind of go through, the emotional struggles that happen. So I do like how this girl power club did discuss slut shaming and supporting Hannah with her return to school, where rumors have left a toxic environment for her. That was good. Charlie is our LGBTQ character. She is also going through an identity crisis, and she can't decide if she identifies more as a girl or more as a boy. Her birth name is Charlotte, but she likes to go by Charlie. Honestly, it felt kind of unnecessary, except that her character was woven in nicely. But again, I felt like maybe they were just trying to do too much with this, because they did also discuss how Mara and Charlie were really good friends to start out with, but then they started dating when she came out to her friends. Sleepovers became a thing of the past quickly. But again, it was woven in there nicely, so if you're gonna put it in, at least they didn't just info dump it like they info dumped everything in this book. They also discussed the legal system, from the doctors when Hannah had to go to the doctor for her wrist and ended up going through a rape kit thing, and she describes it as being like there for hours and it was humiliating. And then also from the state attorneys, as they put it, because the doctors sent the information to attorneys, then whether or not they press charges on Owen is out of their hands, it's in the state's hands. However, this book has lost a lot of credibility for me, so I would want to fact check that. I just can't count on this book for being legally accurate. My common sense would tell me that if Hannah and her parents, because Hannah is a minor, could opt out for pressing charges. This could be covered later in the book, I don't know. One last thing that I really appreciated from this book was the struggle that Hannah went through between determining what consensual sex is to implied consensual sex, because she and Owen had had sex before this. I think that that's really good, and I think that it's really relatable. It was really hard to bash this book because these are really important topics that kids need a proper education on, but this book failed. Boys and girls alike need to know how to navigate these complex relationships and emotions and how to deal with them positively and not be under this misrepresentation about girls and boys. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. That wraps up my worst books of 2019. And now I'm starting to feel like you guys are thinking I just hate a bunch of books because I just uploaded my unpopular opinions tag and I didn't have some nice things to say about that. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Bye!